part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to a special edition of the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I've asked producer extraordinaire Jordan Powell to stay with me, working extra, because I felt like this podcast had to be done, and it had to be done now. I was planning on a Cavs podcast sooner than later, but they are so hot, and I'm so excited about them that I asked Jordan to do it right now. Sunday night, November 7th, 2021, and Jordan said, absolutely. The Cleveland Cavaliers, ladies and gentlemen, are back. In terms of NBA relevance, they are back. I am staking whatever I have to that claim. The Cleveland Cavaliers, after 3 seasons post-LeBron 2.0, finally have returned to legitimacy, relevance in the NBA. Not a moment too soon. The first 3 seasons post-LeBron 2.0, incredibly painful. But if what we're seeing now is the price we had to pay, then I guess, all right, it was worth it to this point, even though I wasn't saying that the first 3 seasons, truth be told. But the Cleveland Cavaliers have a slogan called "Let 'em know." Unless you've been living under a rock or under the ocean, you know by now that the Cleveland Cavaliers are here. And it is fun. That's the word I've seen on social media more than any to describe the Cavs, and it's a perfect 3-letter word: fun. This team has been a blast to watch, but it didn't start that way. It did not start that way. Season opener, October 20th at Memphis, lost 132-121 to Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. 2 nights later, come home opener against the Charlotte Hornets, lost 123-112. And I got to say, I'd said it that night. Oh, no. Oh, boy. Oh, here we go again. Season 4 of the rebuild, and it doesn't look good. 255 points allowed in the first 2 games. Even if I grant you, a dynamic offensive performance by Memphis and by Charlotte, still, you can't give up 255 in the first 2 games. So the Cavs were 0-2, and the night after Charlotte, they're looking at the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young and the boys. All the Hawks did last year was get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm thinking, all right, it's going to be 0-3, and then what? Then you got to go on a 5-game trip to Denver, LA for the Clippers and Lakers, Phoenix, and back to Charlotte as the final game on the 5-game trip. I didn't see a win in that trip. So I'm like, is this team really going to start 0-8? Well, guess what? The Cleveland Cavaliers, after having given up 255 points total in their first 2 games, the night after the Charlotte loss, just flipped the switch defensively and locked down the Hawks, who they ambushed them. The Hawks never saw this kind of defense coming. Cavaliers won 101-95. Then the Cavs went out and opened their trip with another smothering defensive performance. 99-87 over the Nuggets. Shocked the Nuggets. Jokic and his crew. You could not believe the Cavaliers were all over them defensively. Held the potentially high-flying Nuggets to 87 points in their house. Then the Cavs went to Staples Center and throttled the Clippers 92-79. Paul George couldn't breathe. They were all over him, among others. And all of a sudden, the Cavs had a 3-game winning streak and were 3-2, and were playing defense. Okay, so they lost the next two. The Lakers won at 113-101. No shame there with the Lakers' future Hall of Fame roster. And also the fact that the Cavs were running with the Lakers for 3.5 quarters. Then they go to Phoenix, and Phoenix, outclassed them, but that's okay because, Phoenix was the Western Conference champion last year. Was in the NBA Finals against the Bucks. So to expect the Cavs to go to Phoenix and beat the Suns at this stage of the rebuild, even 4 years removed from LeBron 2.0, unrealistic. So I could live with that. So they dropped to 3-4, and I still had a decent feeling about them because of the way that they were playing overall. But the game that really sold me on this team was the next one. The final game of the trip, final of the 5-game trip, they flew from Phoenix to Charlotte. It's a rare West Coast trip that ends on the East Coast. They play the Hornets, a team that had dropped 123 on them on October 22nd. They played them on November 1st. Beat them 113-110. A gut check victory. And that was the one that said to me, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this team's for real. To suck it up the way they did, to overcome the fatigue, to beat a good team in their house at the end of a trip like that, when everybody in the world figured they were going to lose it. That showed me a lot. And the Cavs improved to 4-4. And you know what they've done since? They've done nothing but win. 107-104 over Portland at home, 102-101 at Toronto on Friday, and 126-109 at the Knicks tonight. And we will dive into that Knicks game on the other side of the upcoming break because it was a blast to watch. I told Jordan we can't do this podcast until the Cavs-Knicks game is over. It was awesome to watch. NBA at a high level from two teams that aren't considered title contenders in early November. So the Cleveland Cavaliers have now ripped off 4 games in a row, 4 victories in a row. They're 7-4. Let them know is resonating around the league. Teams, not just fans now, teams are taking notice of the Cavs. And it's a beautiful thing because I'm born and raised in Northeast Ohio, and I've lived and died Browns, Cavs, Indians my entire life. And I know the Indians are now the Guardians as long as they win that lawsuit against the roller derby team. But it's been Cavs, Indians, Browns for me from as soon as I can, as soon as I could follow sports, mid-70s. And so I'm invested in Cleveland, in Cleveland's 3 majors every year, no matter what the state of their affairs. I'm not going to bail on the Cavs and stop following them when they're in a rebuild, just as I wouldn't with the Browns or the Indians. Clearly, they were in a rebuild post LeBron 2.0, but I stayed with them, as most Cavs fans would. They're not going to abandon their team. I will say, though, my patience was wearing thin by the end of last season because this was the end of season 3, post LeBron 2.0, and it was 22-50 was the record. And I had high hopes at 8-7 when the Cavs won back-to-back games against the Brooklyn Nets in Cleveland. And I was thinking, maybe they'll compete for a play-in playoff spot. Well, the season just crumbled and they wound up going 22-50. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was frustrated, even recognizing that rebuilds can take time. I was frustrated by the end of last season. And my patience had worn thin. Well, guess what? I feel like my patience is being rewarded right now because this team looks the part of a contender for playoffs. Let's not get greedy. I'll take contender for the playoffs because you can't go from 0 to 100 in this league. You can't even go 0 to 60 overnight. You have to take some steps. But I think the Cavaliers are good enough to compete for a playoff spot, and that's glorious news for their worldwide fan base. When we get back on the other side of the break, we'll dive into the Cavs' latest victory, and then I'll start talking about why the Cavs are different or how the Cavs are different this year.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Jeremy Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need each week to get you ready for kickoff and beyond.
Don't miss our breakdowns of each week's matchups, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we all know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
That's right, Jeremy. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it, Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. This is a special edition of the show because of the Cleveland Cavaliers, because of how hot the Cavaliers are. I dialed up Jordan Powell, producer extraordinaire, and I said, Jordan, I'm so excited about the Cavs, I have to podcast about them. And he said, sure, let's do it. The Cavs have won 4 in a row, and they are destroying fools. Yeah, that's how I look at it. They're destroying fools. I know. The margins for victory are not dominant. 3 over Charlotte in the winning streak, 3 over Portland, 1 over Toronto, and then the blowout over the Knicks, 126-109. In a game that was competitive into the fourth quarter. But just looking at that 4-game winning streak, the ongoing 4-game winning streak, next game, Wednesday at home against Washington, that's a win in my mind. They're going to beat the Wizards. And then they're going to beat the Pistons on Friday to make it 6 in a row before Boston comes calling. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't care. That's how excited I am about the Cavs. But the 4-game winning streak, they're winning in a variety of ways. They're winning close games. They're winning with defense when necessary. They're winning with offense when necessary. They're winning with different guys. Just in the high scoring department, all right? Cavaliers scoring leader in each of the games. And by the way, this includes the losses, but listen to the variety here. Allen 25, Sexton 33, Rubio 23, Love 22, Sexton 26, Mobley 23, Osman 20, Allen 24, Allen 24, Garland 21, Rubio 37. You have different names and you don't have extraordinarily high numbers. That's a good sign. Of course, the Cavs would like to have superstars who drop 40 a night. But if you don't have the superstars, at least have the ability with your roster to have many people score on a given night. And that's what the Cavaliers have here. They don't rely on one player. They don't rise and fall with 1 or 2 stars. They can compensate if one guy has a shooting night because there are other guys who know how to put the ball in the basket. Different hero seemingly every night, different ways to win. Tonight, in Madison Square Garden, the Cavaliers faced the red-hot New York Knicks. All the Knicks did in their previous game was roar back and punk the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee. So the Knicks were feeling it. They were 6-3. They were at home. It was a Sunday night. I'm sure their fans were thinking this is going to be fun city. Yeah, the Cavs, nice little plucky team, but we'll beat them. We're going to move to 7-3. And, we're New York Knicks basketball and we're back. Well, you know what? The Knicks are good and they were, decent last year. But the Cavs had other ideas tonight. They said, not yet, Knicks. You're not going to walk all over us tonight. In fact, we're going to beat you, and we're going to beat you going away. 126-109. I know that Coach Tom Thibodeau of the Knicks, the defensive-minded Tibbs, he undoubtedly has said, I shouldn't say I know, I'm guessing he has said, because I haven't listened to the post-game comments or read them, but Thibodeau's probably going to say, or will have said, my defense wasn't good. But I submit in this particular case that the Cavs' offense was spectacular. It was more the Cavs' awesome offense than the Knicks' bad defense. I thought the Knicks did a lot of smothering of the Cavs, but the Cavs played the offensive game so well that it compensated for it. 49 of 90 from the field for 54%. including 19 of 35 from three-point range. I don't remember in the past 3 seasons, I cannot recall those two numbers being as robust, both percentage-wise and field goals made-wise, as what I just read to you. 49 of 90 for 54% overall from the field, 19 of 35 for 54% from three-point range. In any of the past 3 seasons. Maybe it happened, but it happened tonight for the Cavs. The leader, Ricky Rubio, just a magical night. 31 minutes, 13 of 19 from the field, 8 of 9 threes, 37 points, 10 assists. I mean, are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. The Spanish Maravich was out of his mind. Evan Mobley, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Jared Allen, 18 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists. Darius Garland, 16 points, 5 assists. Just incredible job by the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight in turning back the Knicks. They truly have put fun back in Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. I'll bet you that building is rocking. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is rocking on Wednesday night as the Cavs welcome the Wizards to town. And I know when you give up 109, it doesn't look like it was that great of a defensive performance. But the Cavs played a lot of good defense in this game. Trust me, because I watched almost every minute of it. They have decided to buy in on the defensive side of the court, and it's paying off. And when I talk about why and why is this team different than any of the previous 3? Well, when I start looking at it and I start identifying the defense or the differences, it's clearly, to me, the additions that were made. Certainly from the start of the season. From the start of last season, 4 ginormous additions. Jared Allen, the forward center from Brooklyn. Lauri Markkanen from the Bulls. Ricky Rubio from Minnesota. And Evan Mobley by draft. Allen, the Cavs got him in January. They jumped into the James Harden sweepstakes. They had the necessary draft pick capital that was required to get into that deal. And general manager Kobe Altman pried Jared Allen loose, and thank goodness that he did. And the Cavs locked him up 5 for $100 million this offseason. Jared Allen's been fabulous as a Cavalier. So that was addition number 1 since the beginning of last season. Then you had virtually at the same time in the offseason, Lauri Markkanen comes in from the Bulls and Ricky Rubio from the Timberwolves. Markkanen hasn't played all that much this year. When he has, he struggled offensively. But he's still a very important piece and will be going forward. Ricky Rubio, yeah, he's had some shooting nights that, even he would say, yikes. But he has been tremendous for the Cavaliers as one of their guards. And then Evan Mobley, number 3 overall, the 2021 draft. I'll never forget Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer, a buddy of mine, does a fantastic job covering the Cavs and the NBA. He said, D-Man, if the Cavs get Evan Mobley, this could very well be the piece that pushes this rebuild from kind of spinning its wheels to playoff contention. He told me straight up, Evan Mobley is the type of player that you can build around. And Chris Fedor to this point has been absolutely right, and I see no reason why Evan Mobley can't become a star in this league. How high is his ceiling? I don't know. But, I mean, can he go even beyond star? Can he go to superstar? Who knows? But I see stardom in this guy's future, that's for sure. Essentially 7 feet, part of the Tower City lineup that J.B. Bickerstaff can put out there with 3 guys that might as well be 7 feet. You know, some are listed at 6'11" and whatnot. But Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen. When healthy, J.B. Bickerstaff goes to that lineup for a while, and it's tall ball, and it's nasty, and it causes all kinds of matchup problems for the opposition. But even without Markkanen, Mobley and Sexton are game changers for this team at both ends of the court. It's so refreshing to see 2 guys wearing a Cavs uniform during a rebuild that bother the other team. Not just the guys they're guarding, but the guards. Mobley and Sexton are not just bothering their matchup, they're bothering the guards. The opposing guards are coming in like they can't figure out how to shoot over them. They're altering. I mean, their shots are being altered. Their shots are being missed. Their shots are being blocked. They're kicking passes out when they wouldn't otherwise do it. All because of Mobley and Allen in the back. Such a missing piece when you think about the beginning of last season when neither Mobley nor Allen was on this roster. And for that matter, Markkanen too. I mean, it was easy pickings against the Cavs. You blow by their short backcourt, and then you got nothing to deal with in the front court in terms of size and length and agility. But Allen and Mobley are not only tall and long, exceptionally long, but they are agile. They're light on their feet. They're versatile. Jared Allen the other night was switched on to Damian Lillard, the great Damian Lillard, in the Blazers game. Blazers down 3, trying to tie in the final seconds. Allen against Lillard, left wing. And Lillard tries to shake him, can't do it, knows he can't shoot over him, so he takes him down to the left baseline. Allen stays with him and alters that trajectory, and the shot goes begging and the Cavs win. The next game at Toronto, after the Cavs had taken the 102-101 lead, their first lead, by the way, of the entire game, with 4.8 seconds left. Anunoby, the super talented Raptor, drove down the lane against Allen and thought better of it because Allen was going to block him. So Anunoby decided he's going to do a little fadeaway from about 10 feet. No good. Admittedly, the Raptors blew an easy tip, but the fact is, Allen on back-to-back games denied either the game-tying or game-winning shot because of his length, because of his athleticism. Mobley can do the same thing. The difference between Mobley and Allen is Mobley's raw. Wait until Mobley starts to get a feel for how the game's officiated and how the game is played. Right now, he looks great. Imagine what's going to happen when he becomes more and more seasoned. Tonight, 36 minutes, his first game in the NBA at the Garden. I don't know if he played there before this, if he played there in his 1 year at USC or in high school or as an amateur. But his first game in the NBA at the Garden. 36 points, 11 of 15 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He's 20 years old. Evan freaking Mobley, if you need him, and we need him. When I talk about tall ball, these 3 guys, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen, essentially being 7 feet, he's listed here, Mobley is at 6'11", but I've seen some places where he's 7 feet. So Either way, he looks like a 7-footer to me. Turned 20 on June 18th. This guy is a monster. So the main reason that the Cavaliers are different, comes in 4 parts, essentially. The additions of Mobley, Allen, Rubio, and Markkanen since the beginning of last season. But you also have to credit the maturity of some of the guys who are already here, specifically Darius Garland. Darius Garland made great strides at the end of last season, the end of his second season in the NBA. He made great strides as an offensive player, and he's continued to look good in the beginning of his third season. I know his player efficiency rating isn't as great as you'd like it to be, but Darius Garland is playing well. And so his growth has to be factored in when you talk about the differences in the Cavaliers and why I have so much faith in them now when I didn't in the previous 3 seasons of the rebuild post LeBron 2.0. Here's what else is fascinating. And I don't like to say this, but it has to be said. Isaac Okoro has missed, let me see, how many games is this in a row? I think it's 4 in a row now because of a hamstring. And honestly, I don't know that the Cavs miss him all that much. I wish I didn't say this, but I'm saying it. All right, so Isaac Okoro has played 4 games, and he's missed now 7. And I know he was a high pick, number 5 overall out of Auburn in 2020. I'm not saying that you cast him aside. I guess he has a role, but as he's been out with this hamstring, I haven't missed him. We knew going in he wasn't exactly an adept offensive player. He's known for his D. I sure hope that Okoro becomes a factor for this team. But to this point, I'm a little nervous. The other interesting element that's not necessarily great news is that Colin Sexton injured his knee today. I don't know what the latest is on it. He left the game early and did not return. And I hope Colin Sexton's back as soon as possible. But the reason I'm mentioning him is not just because he was out today because of the knee, but in-game injury. But clearly this team belongs to Darius Garland and Jared Allen. It no longer is Colin Sexton's team, in my opinion. And you say, well, all right, well, why is that necessarily a bad thing? It doesn't have to be a bad thing, but there's clearly got to be a transition. There has to be a transition away from Sexton being the man to this being Darius Garland and Jared Allen's team. Now, Garland and Allen would say if they were asked, oh, no. It's everybody's team. We're all in this together. We all want to win. And, but when you watch them play, when you watch this team play, you see how the team takes on the personality and the leadership of Darius Garland and Jared Allen. Sexton was the guy on this team for the first 3 seasons of his NBA career, which happened to be the first 3 seasons after LeBron left the second time. Hopefully, he makes the transition off of that leadership role, off of that he's the man who's going to pour in 25 a night for a bad team role. And he can become a guy who fits in, becomes part of the winning equation, scores when he's asked to score, contributes in other ways with his hustle and his want to and his competitiveness. But it's going to take some subjugating of Sexton's ego as he sees the mantle or the baton passed from him to Darius Garland, from him to Jared Allen. I think Sexton has a place in this league as a Vinnie Johnson type microwave instant scorer. I think he's a sixth man extraordinaire potentially. But when I look at the guard situation, and not just because Ricky Rubio went off tonight, even if Ricky Rubio is having a decent night, I'm more comfortable with Rubio and Garland than I am with Garland and Sexton, or Sexton and Garland. To me, on this team, when you look at the three guards, the most important two, the three main guards, the most important two are Garland and Rubio. And I know Colin Sexton has money hanging over his head, a lot of it. You know, he was eligible for a rookie supermax. He was eligible for a rookie max. He got neither. Other members of the 2018 draft class got theirs, notably Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Michael Porter Jr. So other members of the 2018 draft class got paid, and Colin Sexton did not. Cavs opted to punt on that, to borrow from another sport. So where does that leave Sexton? Well, he plays out this season. He becomes a restricted free agent at the end of the season, and somebody else comes calling and sets the price. That's what a lot of us thought the Cavs were thinking all along, and that's indeed what happened. They did not want to set the market. They did not want to pay Colin Sexton without anybody to work off of. They want another team to come in and say, we think he's worth X, and then the Cavs decide, do we want to match? So that has to be hanging over Sexton's head, in addition to the reality that Garland has taken such great strides. Rubio's here to play, and tonight he was spectacular. It's worth watching, let's put it that way. But I think Sexton, being the pro that he is, he will figure out how to help this team without necessarily having all the spotlight on him. Same with Kevin Love. And Love was doing that initially before he got sidelined for health and safety protocols. He's been out for a bit, as has Lauri Markkanen. So the Cavs tonight in the Garden, they were without Isaac Okoro, Lauri Markkanen, and Kevin Love, and then missed Sexton for the majority of minutes in the game and still won, going away against a good Knicks team in the Garden. But Kevin Love, at the outset of the season, was playing well off the bench. He clearly had accepted his role. It was easy to accept given that he was making $31 million, but still, Kevin Love was part of the solution, and I think he will continue to be with this team. I think Sexton's going to have to do that as well. He's going to have to figure out how he can help this team without being the man. And I trust him, because this is too much fun. There's too much good vibes, too many good vibes with this team right now. And Colin Sexton, we know he wants to win. He can just look at this landscape and go, man, I've been playing hard and scoring a lot of points for a loser for 3 seasons. Now I got a chance to contribute, maybe not at the level I'm used to, but I got a chance to contribute to a winner. Sign me up. So I'm counting the hours till the next Cavs game, which is, again, Wednesday night in Cleveland. I think it's going to be a victory, and then they'll destroy the Pistons. So this team is rolling. Let them know. The Cavs say, yeah, let them know. Let them know. It's EM, by the way. Let them know. Let them know with the apostrophe. One of these days, Vegas is going to glom onto the Cavs. Even tonight, Cavs were like 7.5-point dogs. One of these days, Vegas will figure it out. But the Cavs, I'm going to declare on the night of November 7th, 2021, are for real. How far can they go? I don't know. But I think they're just scratching the surface. And at the very least, they're playoff contenders. All right, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Jordan Powell, for your double duty tonight. We'll talk to everybody soon.